Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a question that I think keeps a lot of us up at night, whether we actively realize it or not.
Oh, absolutely. It's the big one.
Right. It's this fundamental question about the architecture of human nature. If you stripped away all the laws, the iPhones, the polite dinner parties, the surveillance cameras,
All the guardrails.
exactly. Without the guardrails, what are we? Are we at our core these collaborative, egalitarian, peace loving creatures? Or are we just naturally bullies wired for dominance and aggression?
It is the fundamental question, isn't it? And usually, if you open a philosophy book or just scroll through social media, you have people shouting from one of two very distinct
The
corners.
classic debate.
Yeah. You have the Rousseau corner saying we are noble savages who are corrupted by society. And then you have the Hobbes corner saying, no, we are brutish beasts that need civilization to tame us.
Right. And I think most of us listening, you probably oscillate between those two feelings depending on whether you just watched a video of a puppy rescue or, well, the evening news.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really depends on the day.
But today we're going to look at a massive stack of research that suggests the answer is, well, it's yes.
To both.
Yes to both. We're exploring what we are calling the dialectics of dominance.
That's a great way to frame it. We're going to trace the human history of power and control. And we're going to do this chronologically and thematically.
Starting literally in the forest.
Right, starting in the forest with our primate ancestors. Then we're moving into the sociology of the modern living room. And finally, looking at where we are right now, today, in February 2026, where dominance has basically moved into the cloud.
It is a massive scope. And to help us navigate this, we've got some heavy hitters in the source pile. We're looking at Christopher Boehm's landmark evolutionary book, Hierarchy in the Forest, which honestly completely blew my mind regarding how we became political animals.
It's a foundational text. And from there, we're breaking down the sociological work of Michael Johnson. He completely changed how we define domestic violence. And his work is really the key to understanding why so many court cases go wrong.
Yeah, that part is going to be crucial. And we're also virtually attending the 2026 Asia Pacific Coercive Control and Children Conference, which is happening right now in the timeline of our deep dive.
Which gives us this incredible cutting-edge perspective on how experts are fighting back against dominance today.
Plus, we have some really unsettling new reports on AI facilitated abuse.
The deepfakes, the voice cloning.
Yeah, and the counter technology is being developed to fight them. So
Oh.
so buckle up for this one. I have to say, I always thought democracy was this sort of modern invention.
Right, like the Greeks and togas.
Exactly. Greeks in togas, the American founding fathers in wigs. I figured before that it was just cavemen clubbing each other over the head to be the boss.
That is definitely the common perception. But the research shows that democracy, or at least the political resistance to tyranny, is actually ancient.
It's dominance that keeps trying to make a comeback.
Exactly. The story of human evolution is really the story of the little guys ganging up to stop the bully.
I love that framing. It makes history feel a lot more active.
Mm.
So let's start there. Let's go back to the forest. We're looking at Christopher Boehm's work.
Right.
And he spent a lot of time at the Gombe Stream Research Center. That's Jane Goodall's turf for those familiar studying chimpanzees. And he has this gripping account of realizing just how different the rules are in their world.
He really does. And to understand the stakes here, you have to visualize the environment. Boehm is walking down this narrow trail in the Gombe forest. It's humid, it's dense,
Very isolated.
very. And coming the other way on this path is a chimp named Goblin. Now, Goblin isn't just any chimp. He is the alpha male. He is the absolute boss.
Okay, so just to put this in a human context, if I'm walking down a hallway and I see the CEO of my company or even the president, I might nod, I might step aside to be polite, but I don't feel a physical threat to my life if I don't bow fast enough.
Right, exactly.
But
We have this democratic software running in our heads that says, I have rights. I have personal space.
chimpanzees do not have that software.
No, they do not. Boehm realizes a split second too late that he hasn't moved off the path fast enough. He hasn't signaled, I'm small, you are big.
Oh, wow.
And Goblin's reaction is instantaneous. It's not a polite cough or a glare. His hair bristles, technically called piloerection. He puffs up to look twice his size, and he prepares to charge.
So it's literally a bow or bleed moment.
It is. And that bristles reaction is visceral. It's a biological signal of impending violence. Boehm managed to submissively crouch and avoid a mauling, but it taught him a lesson that anchored his entire career.
Which is what?
That chimpanzees live in what he calls orthodox dominance hierarchies. It is a strict vertical pyramid. If you're at the top, you take the best fruit, you take the best sleeping spot.
And if someone beneath you tries to keep something for themselves.
If a subordinate tries to hide a piece of meat, the alpha will just walk over and take it right from his hands.
So there's no concept of fairness at all. There is only power.
Precisely. It is despotism, pure and simple. The strong rule the weak through intimidation.
Which is terrifying when you realize we share about 98% of our DNA with Goblin.
It is.
So the question Borum asks, and this is really the crux of the book we're looking at, is how on earth did we break that cycle?
Because we did break it.
Right. Because for about 200,000 years, human hunter-gatherers were aggressively not like Goblin.
They were famously egalitarian.
Exactly. They didn't have chiefs or kings. They shared meat equitably. They made decisions as a group.
This is the massive evolutionary puzzle. If our closest relatives are despots, why were our ancestors basically socialists?
Right. Did we just magically lose the alpha gene? Did we just evolve to be nice?
Bohm's answer to that is a hard no. And this is where it gets really interesting. He argues that humans are still by nature status hungry. We still have that inner chimp that wants to be the alpha.
So if you put a bunch of humans in a room without rules,
Someone will try to take charge. Someone will try to dominate. It's inevitable.
so we are still bullies on the inside.
In a way, yes. But we develop something chimps don't have. We develop the cognitive ability to form large, stable moral coalitions. We developed a reverse dominance hierarchy.
A reverse dominance hierarchy, that sounds like a paradox. Unpack that for us.
Okay, so in a standard hierarchy, like the chimps, the strong, dominate the weak.
Yeah.
The arrow of power points down.
The pyramid shape.
Exactly. But in a reverse dominance hierarchy, the rank and file, the weak band together to dominate the alpha. The arrow of power points up.
Oh, I see. So it's essentially a union. It's collective bargaining, but with spears.
That's a perfect analogy, yes. Sure. Bohm analyzed anthropological data from dozens of hunter-gatherer tribes, the Khum, the Inuit, the Yanomami,
Yeah.
and he found the exact same pattern everywhere.
What kind of pattern?
Well, if one guy started acting like an alpha chimp, hogging the meat, ordering people around, maybe trying to steal someone's wife, the rest of the group wouldn't just sit there and take it. They would use a specific escalation ladder to shut him down.
So it wasn't just straight to violence, right? It was more subtle at first.
Right. It always starts with ridicule, gossip. They'd tease him. They'd say things like, "Oh, look at big man over here. Thinks he killed a whole antelope by himself. The meat is so tough we can barely eat it anyway."
Wow.
It's a social mechanism to lower his status, to deflate his ego.
Which is so profoundly human. I mean, we still do that today. We roast people who get too full of themselves.
We do. It's an ancient political tool. But if ridicule didn't work, if the bully just didn't get the message and kept trying to dominate, they would escalate.
What's the next step on the ladder?
They would openly disobey him. They'd ostracize him, just ignore him completely, which, by the way, is a death sentence in the wild.
Right, you can't survive alone.
You really can't. And in extreme cases, if a bully was truly dangerous and just wouldn't stop, say he became a serial murderer or an absolute tyrant, the group would conspire to execute him.
That is heavy. So political equality wasn't just this passive kumbaya state of nature where everyone was holding hands and singing. It was an active, vigilant struggle. They were constantly pruning the tall poppies.
Precisely. Bohm calls it intentional. Egalitarianism is a hard-won political structure. It requires the entire group to constantly stay alert against upstarts. And this leads to a really crucial concept he calls the utopian barrier.
The utopian barrier. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel, but it's actually kind of pessimistic, isn't it?
I'd say it's realistic. It's essentially a limit on how perfect our society can be. Because we have this ambivalent nature. We want to dominate, like the chink, but we also hate being dominated, so we resist.
Right.
Because of that tension, we can never create a totally conflict-free society.
Right.
The moment you relax the social pressure, someone tries to take power.
So there is no end of history where we figure it all out and just live in peace forever.
No. We are locked in this eternal tension. We have to constantly suppress the bully generation after generation.
That makes so much sense. We see it in office politics, in homeowners associations, in local government. It's always a fight to keep things fair. But here's the shift I want to explore for a minute. For thousands of years, we handled these bullies in the forest. The group was the police force. Everyone saw everything. Right. There was no privacy for abuse. Exactly. But as society changed, we got agriculture, we built cities, we invented private property and walls. The dynamic shifted completely.
It did. The domain of dominance changed. In a nomadic tribe, you can't really abuse your partner or children in secret because you sleep in a communal clearing.
If someone screams her brothers are 5 feet away with spears.
Exactly. But once you have a house with a door that locks, the alpha finds a new kingdom.
We're moving from the forest to the living room. The bullies are in the living room now. And this brings us to the work of sociologist Michael Johnson.
Yes.
Now, I've heard this debate for years. You see it online all the time. One side says men and women hit each other at equal rates. They have surveys to prove it. Gender symmetry, they call it.
Right.
But then you look at police reports or women's shelters, and it's overwhelmingly men battering women. So there was this huge disconnect.
That was the massive academic war in the 1990s. It was incredibly divisive. You had family conflict researchers doing these broad telephone surveys, asking things like, have you slapped or pushed your partner in the last year?
And what did they find?
Indeed, the numbers were roughly equal for men and women. Sometimes women even scored higher on slapping.
Which fueled the argument that domestic violence isn't a gendered issue at all.
Right. But then you had the feminist researchers working directly in the shelters. They were seeing women terrorized, hospitalized, stalked, and killed by men. They weren't seeing reciprocal slaps, they were seeing regimes of terror.
So who was right? Was one side just lying or misrepresenting the data?
Neither. Johnson figured out they were both right, but they were measuring two completely different phenomena. He developed a typology that is absolutely crucial for anyone listening to understand.
Let's really dig into this, because if you take one thing away from this deep dive, let it be this. Violence isn't all the same. We are using one word, violence, to describe two completely different movies.
That's a great way to put it. Let's play those movies.
Okay, let's start with Movie Johnson calls this situational couple violence.
Right. Situational couple violence, or SCV. This is what the telephone surveys were picking up. Imagine a couple, let's call them Sarah and Mark.
Okay.
It's Tuesday night. They're arguing about credit card debt. They're stressed. Maybe they've been drinking. The shouting gets louder. Sarah shoves Mark. Mark grabs her arm. Maybe a plate gets thrown against the wall.
It's ugly. It's a toxic environment.
It is absolutely unacceptable. But, and this is the vital distinction, is one of them trying to own the other? No. The violence is a reaction to the specific conflict, the situation.
It arises from poor impulse control or anger management issues.
Exactly. So it's a bad fight, but it's not a regime. The next day, they might be apologetic. They might be deeply ashamed. But Mark isn't tracking Sarah's mileage on her car.
Sarah isn't forbidding Mark from seeing his brother.
Right. And in this category, the demographics are roughly gender symmetric. Women initiate it almost as often as men.
Okay, so that's SCV. Now play movie B. This is what Johnson calls intimate terrorism.
This is what the shelter workers were seeing. Intimate terrorism, or IT. In this movie, the violence might actually be less frequent physically. He might only hit her once a year, but the threat is omnipresent.
This is where we see that power and control wheel visual, right? The Duluth model.
Yes, the Duluth model. The physical violence, the actual hitting, is just one spoke on the wheel. The rim of the wheel, the thing holding everything together, is power and control.
So it's not about losing his temper.
No. He controls the bank account. He counts the minutes she takes to get back from the grocery store. He critiques her clothes. He isolates her from her friends.
The violence is just a tool in the toolbox.
It is a calculated enforcement mechanism. If she steps out of line, he punishes her. And unlike situational couple violence, intimate terrorism is overwhelmingly perpetrated by men in heterosexual relationships. We are talking 90+%.
And Johnson identified a couple of other types too, right? Because victims in these situations aren't just passive.
Right. He identified violent resistance. This is when a victim of intimate terrorism fights back. If a woman strikes her abuser because she thinks he's going to kill her, or even just to get him to back off for a minute.
The police might show up and see marks on both of them.
Exactly. And they might label it mutual abuse.
But the motivation is completely different.
Completely. She is fighting for her actual survival. He is fighting for control. Labeling that mutual is a massive failure of analysis.
And there was a fourth type, mutual violent control.
That is rare, but it happens. That's two intimate terrorists battling for dominance. It's essentially a war zone.
So why does this distinction matter so much? I mean, obviously accuracy is good, but what are the real world stakes for making sure we know which movie we're in?
The stakes are literally life and death, because the remedy for one type can be fatal for the other.
Give us an example of how that plays out.
If a family court judge sees a couple engaging in situational couple violence movie A, they might order mediation or couples therapy. They might say, you two need to learn to communicate better. And for SEV, that might actually work.
But if you send an intimate terrorist and his victim to mediation,
It is disastrous. You are putting a hostage in a room with her captor and asking them to negotiate.
wow.
The abuser will use that session to further terrorize the victim, often silently. A look across the table, a specific gesture. Or he will play the charming, rational man for the mediator and then punish the victim later for speaking up.
So Johnson's work showed us that treating all domestic violence as a communication problem physically endangers lives.
Exactly. It's the difference between breaking up a bar fight and negotiating a hostage situation.
That is a perfect analogy. You don't mediate a hostage situation, you extract the hostage.
Yes. And we're seeing the health impacts of getting this wrong too. Even for male victims of intimate terrorism, which is rarer but happens, they suffer significantly worse mental health outcomes like PTSD and severe depression than victims of just situational couple violence.
Because it's the regime of control that breaks the psyche, not just the physical blow.
Exactly.
This leads us right into the now. We have the evolutionary theory from the forest. We have the sociological framework from Johnson's typology. Now let's look at how this is playing out on the ground in 2026.
Let's do it.
We're looking at the agenda and the proceedings for the 2026 Asia Pacific Coercive Control and Children Conference. This is a massive gathering of experts, survivors, judges, policymakers, and it's happening right now as we speak.
It really is the modern equivalent of that Paleolithic rank and file gathering to figure out how to handle the alphas. It's the moral community coming together to say, this behavior is not allowed.
The keynote speaker is David Mandel from the Safe and Together Institute. He's celebrating 20 years of this work. And his focus is on a massive systemic shift. What is the old way versus the new way he's talking about?
So Mandel has been pivotal in shifting the child protection system away from this concept of failure to protect. For decades, the system was inadvertently punishing the victims.
How so?
If a father was beating a mother, Child Protective Services would come in and say to the mother, "You are failing to protect your child from exposure to violence. If you don't leave him, we will take your kids."
Which is, that's insane when you think about it. You're getting beaten up, you're terrified, you probably have no money because of economic control, and their solution is to punish you by taking the thing you love most.
It re-victimized the survivor and actually gave the abuser another tool. He could just say, if you call the cops, they'll come take the kids.
Right, it plays right into his hands. So how does Mandel's model flip that?
The Safe and Together model focuses on perpetrator pattern mapping. It asks a different question. How is a perpetrator's behavior harming the family? And crucially, how can we partner with the survivor, the protective parent, to keep the child safe and together with them?
It sounds so obvious, yet it took decades to get there. It's treating the mother as an ally, not a co-conspirator.
Exactly. Systems are very slow to change. But the 2026 conference really highlights how far we've come. And they aren't just looking at the bad men in a vacuum anymore. They are looking at masculinity itself. I was really struck by the session with Zach Seidler from Movember.
Movember, as in the mustache guys.
The very same. They are doing serious data-driven work on men's mental health. The discussion there is fascinating because it tries to break down the silos.
What's silos?
Often the domestic violence sector sees men's health as a distraction. The attitude is often, stop feeling sorry for the guys hitting people.
Right, which is a totally valid emotional reaction. Why are we talking about his feelings when she has a black eye?
Exactly. But Seidler and his colleagues, like Sean Martin, are arguing that you have to understand the socialization of men, that stoic, bottle-it-up masculinity, if you actually want to stop the violence. They talk about this concept of humiliation fury.
Humiliation fury, what is that?
It's the idea that many men are raised with the king of the castle script. They are supposed to be in charge.
Right.
When life challenges that script, maybe he loses his job, maybe his partner challenges his authority, he doesn't have the emotional tools to negotiate that. He feels humiliated.
And for men raised in that orthodox dominance hierarchy, humiliation triggers rage.
It triggers an attempt to reestablish control through force. So the argument is, if we want to stop coercive control, we can't just tell men don't hit. We have to dismantle the pressure cooker of masculinity that tells them they have to be in control to be worthy.
They're asking, how do we raise expectations for men as fathers while supporting them to change?
Exactly. It's not about excusing the violence at all. It's about understanding the mechanics so we can actually break the machine.
There is also a huge focus on indigenous wisdom at this conference, a session called Two Ways Strong.
Yes, Dr. Inez Fainga-Manacioni presents this. It's about integrating Pacific methodologies with Western clinical practice. And there's also the ALFIE's project, which applies an Aboriginal lens to the safe and together framework.
What's the core insight there? Why do we need a specific lens for this?
It's all about context. You cannot understand family violence in Indigenous communities without understanding colonization, intergenerational trauma, and systemic racism.
So the dominance isn't just one man over one woman.
No, it's a history of a dominant culture suppressing a people, which creates a pressure cooker for violence within the community itself.
So the reverse dominance coalition has to be even broader. It has to address the state, not just the individual abuser.
Precisely. If the state has been the alpha bully for 200 years, you can't just trust the state to fix the problem in the living room. You need community-led solutions.
And that leads into the discussions about queer survivors too, right? Because they face unique systemic hurdles.
Absolutely. The sources discuss how perpetrators in queer families will mobilize legal processes to challenge the protective parent's credibility. They exploit gaps in the legal recognition of diverse family forms.
It's just another way the abuser weaponizes the system against the victim.
Exactly.
There's another term in the conference notes that just chilled me to the bone: reproductive coercion and abuse.
RCA. Yes. It's a distinct form of coercive control that is finally getting the attention it deserves.
What does that look like in practice?
It involves forced pregnancy, forced abortion, or tampering with contraception, poking holes in condoms, hiding birth control pills.
It's the ultimate biological control.
It is. It's about tethering the victim to the abuser permanently through a child. And the research presented shows that children aren't just exposed to this. They are direct survivors.
Because sometimes the child was conceived through coercion.
Yes. That creates an incredibly complex, painful dynamic for both the mother and the child.
It's incredibly heavy stuff. But just as we think we're getting a handle on these physical and psychological tactics, the alphas have found a completely new weapon. We have to talk about the digital frontier.
This is part 4 of our dive, and honestly, it's the most rapidly evolving threat right now.
It is. The online-offline divide is a total illusion. We used to think, oh, just turn off the computer or close the laptop. You can't do that anymore. The digital world is the real world.
It destroys real lives. The new reports on AI-facilitated abuse paint a very dystopian picture. Let's talk about deepfakes.
The statistics are just staggering. Roughly 90 to 95% of deepfake videos online are non-consensual pornography, and 99% of the targets are women.
99%.
I mean, I knew it was bad, but 99%. That's not a bug in the system. That is a weapon targeting a specific gender.
It is the industrialization of humiliation. Think about it. A perpetrator can take a normal photo of an ex-partner from social media, fully clothed, smiling at a family picnic, and use AI tools that are freely available right now.
And they use those to strip her or superimpose her face onto hardcore pornographic acts.
Yes. And then he says it to her boss, her father, her children.
It's extortion without the victim ever actually having done anything.
Exactly. It causes job loss, custody loss, and profound psychological trauma. It is intimate terrorism on steroids, because once it is on the internet, you can never fully delete it. It hangs over the victim forever.
It serves the ultimate goal of the abuser perfectly to ruin her reputation and isolate her from the tribe.
And it's not just images either. Voice cloning is getting terrifyingly good.
Oh, this part. Imagine getting a phone call from your daughter. She's crying, she's hysterical, saying she's been hurt or kidnapped. It sounds exactly like her. The cadence, the tone, everything.
But it's an AI clone created by an abusive ex-partner to terrorize you or maybe to scam you out of money. This isn't science fiction. This is happening now.
That is pure nightmare fuel. And then there's the Internet of Things, smart homes. We buy these things for convenience, the smart thermostats, smart lights, security cameras. But in the hands of an abuser,
it becomes a tool for gaslighting 2.0. Imagine you were sitting in your living room. Suddenly, the heat cranks up to 90 degrees.
You turn it down. 10 minutes later, it's back up.
The lights start flashing at 3 in the morning. The smart locks just unlock themselves.
It's like living in a haunted house, but the ghost is your ex-husband.
And he might be doing it from a coffee shop 3 towns over. This is what the researchers call omnipresence. The victim never feels safe. The abuser is in the walls.
He's watching through the baby monitor. He's tracking the GPS on the car.
We talked about the Duluth power and control wheel earlier. The conference sources explicitly mention that we need to update that wheel for 2026.
We absolutely do, because isolation isn't just forbidding you from seeing friends anymore. It's blocking your social media access or reporting your account so they get banned.
Economic control isn't just taking your cash. It's hacking your bank account or ruining your credit score with bot-generated debt.
And fueling all of this is what researchers are calling the manosphere.
The algorithmic amplification of misogyny. We have young men, boys, really being fed content that tells them women are objects, that dominance is their birthright.
Because AI tools on social media platforms prioritize this extreme content, it drives engagement.
It is radicalizing a completely new generation of intimate terrorists
Yeah.
before they even have their first relationship.
It feels overwhelming. It really feels like the bullies are winning the tech war. The tools for dominance are getting cheaper, faster, and more accessible.
It does feel that way.
Oh,
But remember the lesson from the forest. The rank and file can organize. The coalition can adapt. And they are organizing technologically right now.
let's talk about the solutions. Techno resistance. There's an app called Safe Call Up that was presented at the conference.
This was presented by Jackie Ruck and her team. It's a brilliant example of fighting fire with fire. It's a covert survivor-led safety app.
Now, covert is key here. Because if the abuser finds a domestic violence app on your phone, that alone could trigger a violent attack.
Right. These apps are designed to look like a boring utility, a calculator, a weather app, maybe a period tracker. But if you enter a specific PIN or hold a button for a few seconds, it unlocks the safety features.
And Safe Call Up actually uses AI for good.
It does. It has an AI-driven safety planning module that adapts to the survivor's changing risk level in real time.
So it acts almost like a digital social worker.
In a way, yes. And unlike manual systems where you have to write things down in a physical diary, which can easily be found and destroyed, this app documents the abuse securely in the cloud.
It saves text, records audio of incidents, logs GPS data.
And it does it all in a way that is legally admissible in court.
That is huge because so often these cases come down to he said, she said. This creates an objective, tamper-proof timeline.
Exactly. It connects directly with police and legal systems, unlike some older, clunkier systems. It's using the master's tools data, surveillance AI, to dismantle the master's house.
Speaking of courts, we have to touch on the legal reform aspect. The conference featured this really interesting fireside chat with Deputy Chief Justice Robert McClellan and Justice Tom Altobelli.
The legal system has historically been a tool for the abuser. We call it legal systems abuse or paper abuse.
An abuser with money can drag a victim through court for years, filing frivolous motions, contesting every minor detail, just to exhaust them financially and emotionally.
I've seen it over and over. They just keep suing for custody, not because they actually want to raise the kids, but because they know the mother can't afford a lawyer anymore.
It's dominance via bureaucracy. So what are the judges at the conference doing to stop this?
They are discussing how to recognize that endless litigation is in itself a form of coercive control. They're talking about tangible steps, capping filings, imposing costs on abusers who file frivolous claims.
And prioritizing the child's safety over parental rights.
Exactly.
That brings us perfectly to the Backbone Collective survey from New Zealand. They provided some really damning data on how these systems fail kids.
This was a crucial piece of the puzzle. The Backbone Collective found that systems often inadvertently collude with perpetrators. A major issue is access to therapy.
How does that work?
Say a child is traumatized by the father's violence, and the protective mother wants to take the child to a psychologist. The system often requires consent from both parents.
Oh, wow. So the abuser has veto power over the child's healing.
Yes. The abusive father just refuses consent. He claims the mother is brainwashing the child or making it all up, so the psychologist legally can't see the kid.
And the system just says, well, our hands are tied, we need joint consent.
Exactly. It's bureaucratic neutrality enabling abuse.
That is infuriating.
It is. The Backbone Collective is arguing forcefully that safety and recovery must trump procedural neutrality. You cannot be neutral between an abuser and a child. The system has to take a side.
So if we zoom out and look at everything we've covered today, we've gone from the Paleolithic, where we used stones and social pressure to stop the bully, to Johnson's era in the 90s, where we learned to identify the different types of bullies using sociology, and now to 2026, where we are using covert apps and legal reforms to fight digital bullies.
It is, as the writer Rob Henderson calls it, the eternal dialectic.
Meaning it never ends.
Meaning there is no finish line. The utopian barrier that Boehm talked about in the forest, it's real. As soon as we solve one form of dominance, like criminalizing physical battery dominance, evolves.
It becomes economic, it becomes digital, it becomes psychological, it finds the cracks in the wall.
Exactly.
That sounds kind of depressing, honestly, but also clarifying. It means we shouldn't be completely surprised when new forms of abuse pop up.
It should be empowering. It means that the struggle for equality isn't a failure. It's just a necessary function of being human. Yes, we are natural bullies, but we are also natural revolutionaries.
Mm.
We have an instinct for reverse dominance. We have a deep instinct to protect the vulnerable.
So the real question for you listening is this: can our resistance evolve as fast as their oppression?
That is the ultimate provocative thought for the listener. We are entering an era of potential hyperdespotism, where technology allows for control at a distance 24/7 with terrifying AI efficiency.
Right.
So will our ability to organize to form moral communities to use counter tools like safe call up? Will that reverse dominance instinct evolve faster than their algorithms?
It's the ultimate arms race. The chimp in the forest trying to hoard all the fruit versus the coalition trying to share it. Only now, the fruit is data, the forest is the internet, and the chimp has a smartphone.
And the coalition has to be smarter, faster, and more united than ever. We have to be two-way strong, we have to keep kids safe and together, and we have to be vigilant.
Well, on that note, stay vigilant, stay connected, and as the experts say, stay autonomous.
Indeed.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.